He got transported to another world where he was exiled to its far-off wastelands by a goddess. However, it turns out to not be all bad for him. We start things off by meeting Masumi Makoto, lamenting on how the generic isekai fairy tale usually goes. But he's found out firsthand that even if you get isekai'd, it might not be exactly as you've always fantasized. He explains it was just an ordinary, peaceful day in his life when he was suddenly and unexpectedly put in the process of being transported to another world by the god Tsukiyomi to become a hero. This is due to an arrangement his parents, who had also been isekai'd in order to come to Japan, had made with an otherworld's goddess. However, once he actually meets with said goddess, she deems him too ugly to even talk to her and banishes Makoto to the far-off wastelands of her world, which is infested with non-humans and monsters, while only bestowing him the ability to understand all languages. As he's pushed out of her presence and falling to his death, Tsukiyomi comes in clutch, saving him, and explaining that whilst he lived his life in Japan, Makoto's abilities were held back. But now that he is in this world, they should be unleashed, and he should be quite powerful, and will now be free to do whatever it is he pleases. After quite literally crash landing and being completely fine, he wanders the wasteland for several days, when he finds and saves a young orc girl named Emma from a two-headed wolf monster, which, to his shock, he kills easily. Emma explains that she was supposed to be sacrificed to the dragon god Shen in order to dispel the fog around her village so their crops can grow again. She then takes him to her village where Makoto begins to learn magic, and after being helped out so much, Makoto decides to confront and destroy Shen for the village. As they fight, Shen traps Makoto inside an illusion of a happy memory of his, but then Shen begins to examine Makoto's other memories and becomes intrigued by his life in Japan. As Makoto breaks the illusion, he is shocked to find that Shen has folded like a lawn chair, offering to make a contract with him in order to become his familiar. Makoto agrees and they form a contract, with Shen transforming into a stacked samurai girl, who is looking forward to their future together. Makoto quickly discovers though that the so-called dragon god Shen has become completely and utterly obsessed with his memories of Japan, and basically turned into a giant Japanese history buff. Makoto then returns and informs the orcs that he defeated Shen, who offers to let the orcs live in her alternate dimension she can make, known as the Demiplane, which now strangely looks like Japanese countryside. Shen continues invading on Makoto's memories and demands they figure out how to build a television which she can store his memories on. Makoto, however, decides to discover more about his parents who were born into this world. Sometime later, Shen appears with an injured dwarf, explaining that their dimension is under attack by a spider known as the Black Disaster that is cursed with eternal hunger. Their fight begins, and Makoto manages to completely obliterate the spider, but collapses after exhausting himself, and the spider then regenerates. The spider then declares that this extreme violence has satisfied its masochistic hunger and wants to stay with Makoto forever. She freaky. Shen then suggests that the spider form a contract with Makoto like she did in order to gain human form. Agreeing with Shen, they then perform the ritual, Makoto's consent apparently not being needed. I don't think that would hold up in court, but anyway. Makoto awakens, finding that he has a new, equally voluptuous servant. Hey, this whole isekai thing's looking up, dude. What are you complaining about? The rescued dwarf is revealed to be Beren, an elder dwarf capable of creating rare artifacts. And much like the orcs, Beren also moves his entire village into Shen's dimension. Shen and the spider then request personal names from Makoto, so he renames Shen to Shen Tomo, after the legendary female samurai Tomo Gozen, and names the spider Mio. Makoto also finds out that while he was unconscious, Tomo and Mio went out recruiting, and his village is now populated by orcs, dwarves, mist lizards, and alk spiders. Makoto then leaves Tomo's dimension in hope of finding actual human people. However, when he finds them, they quickly square up and begin to attack him. After going home and sulking for a bit, Tomo explains that Makoto's pure Sigma energy is so strong that people are probably mistaking him for a demon lord. Makoto then spends months learning Common, the language humans speak, as the goddess bestowed him every language except the most common one, and the dwarves craft him items which can suppress his aura. They then all enter the human village, posing as merchants, and register at the Adventurers Guild, where Tomo and Mio smash records by being 4 times as powerful as the next strongest member, whereas Makoto ranks level 1, weaker than a child due to his suppressed aura. Here Tomo learns that a dragon she knew was killed by an adventurer named Sophia. As they settle into a room at the inn, they discuss how people have begun following them. After, Tomo waits in the wagon in case of attack, while Makoto and Mio are approached by a young girl. Taking her back to the inn, the girl, Rinon, explains that her sister Toa disappeared recently. Meanwhile, Tomo confronts thieves approaching the wagon and delicately disarms them. Oh, I mean, she accidentally kills 3 and captures a 4th. Rinnon sketches her sister, and Makoto determines from the thief's memories their group are holding her captive, and sends Mio and Tomo to retrieve her. And Makoto begins to get concerned about the similarities between the girl sketched and a girl named Hasegawa he knew in Japan. It doesn't take long for Mio and Tomo to locate Toa and her captor, Mills Ace, the current strongest adventurer in the town. Mills is also the secret leader of the thieves, and reveals that a demon lord recently approached the city and a bounty has been placed on its head. So he wants Mio and Tomo's help to hunt it. Not realizing that this demon lord is actually just Makoto. Elsewhere, Rinnon sneaks away and tells the thieves that Makoto's wagon was full of expensive fruit, but he's already sold it. The thieves then insist that she steal Makoto's gold to pay for Toa's debts, but Rinnon decides that she can't steal from someone who was so nice to her. Mio and Tomo then easily defeat Mills, his entire gang of thieves, and pretty much the entire settlement by trying to compete on who defeated the most enemies. Rinnon then reunites with Toa, who is practically identical to Hasegawa apart from her hair color. Awfully convenient for him. Makoto praises Mio and Tomo for rescuing Toa, and after a little punishment for destroying the town doing so, Tomo alters everyone's memories so that the world believes a monster horde destroyed the town instead of them. As they make their way to the next closest town of Siege, Makoto is informed that he has to re-register with the Adventurers Guild there, as the one in Zatsuya, the town they were just in, was destroyed. In danger of another calamity happening to the next town, Makoto tricks Tomo into training alone in the wilderness, just like the Japanese samurai did, which she takes hook, line, and sinker. After they reach the town of Siege and Makoto re-registers with his level of 1, he celebrates with the group of adventurers he rode into town with: Louisa, the elven archer, Hazel, the human alchemist, and Renina, the dwarf priest knight. Makoto is thinking about selling the ruby eyes, which were harvested from a few creatures on their way traveling to the city, to the Rembrandt Trading Company for a quest, but Toa warns him that they have a pretty terrible reputation. The next day, they make their way back to Tomo's dimension to learn about the progress that's been made, where he finds that the alk spiders are settling up in the mountains, the dwarves have begun constructing their own buildings, and the mist lizards are clearing farmlands, while the orcs have begun constructing Mikato his own personal castle. One of the dwarves then find Mikato and give him a merchant's outfit to further suppress his aura. He's level 1, dude. I don't think he needs too much more suppression. But when he wears it, it starts to disintegrate, as his magic is still too strong. Makoto then discovers that anything grown in the demiplane becomes way more potent than normal. Sometime later, Makoto takes the ruby eyes to Rembrandt, and while talking to the manager, finds him difficult to work with. Until the manager, Patrick Rembrandt, realizes Mikado has the ruby eyes and apologizes for being rude. Patrick then happily reveals that the ruby eyes make ambrosia, which is a cure for his wife and daughters who were cursed by a witch doctor. Afterwards, Makoto goes to register as a merchant, and after finding out there is a written exam involved, he easily aces it, as the mathematics are more in line with basic middle school levels. The second test, however, is a bit trickier, where he has to find and gather 4 dangerous items. But he finds a bit of a loophole, which states he can substitute items of equal or higher value for these dangerous items. And using the ruby eyes and other various items he's gathered over his time here, he does just that, becoming a fully registered merchant. As evening approaches, he wonders if he can get in contact with Tomo, as he hasn't talked to her in a few days. And we cut to her, absolutely demolishing various kaiju-level creatures out in the boonies. She might just be taking this a bit too seriously. The next day, Makoto returns to the demiplane, where he plans to set up a hidden portal to trick traveling merchants, making them think that the demiplane is a hidden city, where they will then trade for demiplane items and let the merchants return home, creating a demand for demiplane products. Stonks. He then finds Tomo arguing with Mio, as it seems that Mio has become completely addicted to Makoto's memories of anime and children's cartoons. Same. Now he has a Japanese history fanatic and a budding weeaboo in his party. Nice. Later that night, Tomo and Mio are confused as to why Makoto chooses to sleep alone, rather than pick one of them to sleep with. That's actually a really good point. And they both decide they must come up with some kind of seduction plan. Hazel the alchemist then agrees to the request Makoto made, which was to help brew the ambrosia Patrick was needing. The next morning, as Hazel meets with Makoto, an adventurer watches close by and says they need to gather as many adventurers as they can, in order to stop whatever it is Patrick is doing. Flashing back, we see that Patrick secretly had the witch doctor who cursed his family killed. In the present, Hazel the alchemist then brews the ambrosia, and Makoto is able to hold down Patrick's wife, Lisa, who has become a complete monster due to the curse, so they can successfully administer the ambrosia, curing his wife. They then continue on to cure both of Patrick's daughters as well. After, Makoto returns to Tomo and Mio, but then the trio are quickly attacked by the adventurer named Lime Latte and his gang due to their dealings with Patrick. After making sure Mio sits out of this fight so they don't get a repeat of last time, they easily defeat all 20 members. And after questioning Lime, they discover that he only wanted to put a sleeping curse on Patrick's wife and daughters, as revenge for Patrick preventing several adventurers who displeased him from finding further work in the city, many of whom then died later on as the quests were too difficult for them to handle and they didn't have the experience. He claims he had no idea why the witch doctor put such a dangerous curse on them that would turn them into monsters. Afterwards, Lime goes to Patrick and apologizes profusely for what had happened to him, and due to his wife and daughters recovering quite well, he allows him to live, but states that his adventuring work will be heavily limited from here on out. Lime then explains his intention to retire from adventuring altogether. Afterwards, Tomo, who had looked into Lime's memories and seen that he sends his wages from adventuring to the orphanage where he grew up, hires him as a spy for her after giving him a katana forged by the dwarves. Meanwhile, despite the gratitude Patrick shares with Makoto, business comes first, and he considers what to do about him setting up what seems to be a competing trading company in the city. Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. It only takes a second and it really helps me out.